Hey guys, it's Abby. I'm back with another video, and today I will be talking about my favorite poetry books. I wouldn't say that I'm a huge expert in poetry, but I have taken poetry classes, and just in the last 2 or 3 years I've gotten really into poetry, and I've accumulated, several poetry books, and they're some of my favorites. So I'm just going to go over my favorite poetry books. I will do them from least favorite to most favorite, but they are all my favorites, so none of them are bad, and I definitely suggest reading all of them if you're at all interested in poetry. I think a lot of these are poetry books that I think if you don't know much about poetry, or you don't like poetry that much and you kind of want modern, like contemporary poetry, these are really good. So the first one that I would talk about is Citizen by Claudia Rankine. I read this for a class last semester, and we actually had Claudia Rankine come to my school, but I couldn't make it to her live showing and poetry reading, but I interned for a literary radio show, and those are the people who interviewed it, so I did get to hear the raw and uncut interview, so that was really exciting. But basically this poetry collection was recently put out. It's very beautiful. As you can see, the cover has a black hoodie on it, so it's very political, lots of social activism and social justice in this. The poetry is written like prose. A lot of it is story-like, and there is a lot of photography in here. And this was a very critically acclaimed book. It is a National Book Award finalist. It's definitely poetry that makes you think, and I really enjoyed that about this. It was a longer read just because it is prose poetry. It's written almost like paragraphs, but there are situations that she's gone through, things that she's thought of as a black woman in society, and I thought this was very thought-provoking. Another poetry book that I really like is Touch by Henry Cole. I also read this for a poetry class. It's been a while since I've opened this up, but it's kind of your typical poetry format. It's a collection of poems, so they're all kind of different. It's not as much of a topical book such as the last one that I just talked about, but I remember really enjoying these poems. They're definitely more modern. This one was written in 2011, so it is, again, modern poetry. Some of them are very beautifully written. I loved the use of metaphor and allusions in this, and they're very beautiful to read. I'll have to reread this one again. It's very small, so it would be easy, less than an hour, and I'd be done with it. So I definitely suggest this one as well. Another one that I really like, I'm sure some of you have seen it on Tumblr and things like that, but that is Dirty Pretty Things by Michael Fawcett. I really love the cover, and as you can see, there are quite a few poems in here that I really love. Not all of them are my absolute favorite. He writes a lot of erotic stuff, so if you're under maybe like 16 or 17, I wouldn't recommend this one. Wait a little bit because there is some inappropriate content, but they're very beautifully written, and a lot of them are kind of short little lines, and then he's also got longer ones, and some of them are written as prose. It's very well written, wonderful poetry. He runs a really good Instagram account if you want to follow him, and on the back I think is a really pretty quote from his poetry. It says, "I'm hopelessly in love with a memory, an echo from another time, another place." And I think that really depicts this book, and I really enjoyed these poems. On that note, another probably very popular one that's been on Instagram is Lang Leave, and this is her Love and Misadventures. I've had this one for quite some time. She's put out several other books, I just haven't gone and picked them up yet. I love a lot of hers. She's also very Instagram famous, and she kind of writes in the same format as Michael Fawcett, and that is because they are married, which is super cute. And the back of her book says, "Love is a game of tic-tac-toe, constantly waiting for the next X or O." A lot of hers rhyme, which typically I stray far away from because I feel like it sounds very trivial, but I really enjoy it in hers. She writes it very maturely, and I think it's very beautiful, and her Instagram and Michael's Instagrams are both very similar, so I suggest following them both. They post a lot of their poetry on there. As you can see, I've marked several of hers as well. And something really cute, while we're on the topic of these two, is their dedications. This one says, "For Michael, the half of this book, the whole of my heart." And then his says, "For Lang, I write because you exist." Just so cute. So I love those two. The next one I don't have with me. It's actually at my girlfriend's house, but it is Pansy by Andrea Gibson. She also came to my school and I was required to go see her perform her spoken word poetry for a class. She's primarily a spoken word poet, but she has her work published in a book as well. Beautiful poems. A lot of them are about being gay, about gender, sexuality, feminism, race, lots of social commentary. Very, very liberal social poetry, and a lot with mental illness, depression, anxiety. Just the most beautiful poems. I suggest looking her up and listening to her read her poems. She's got all her poems on Spotify. Just look up Andrea Gibson and you can listen to her, and they do some background music. Just absolutely gorgeous. She may be my all-time favorite poet. I had the opportunity to meet her. She is so inspiring. I loved her work. I love that book. Like, those poems really, really dig deep. She's pretty big on Tumblr too. If you just look up Andrea Gibson and like the Tumblr tags, you'll find tons of stuff. Tons of her quotes. Her poems are beautiful. She writes the most beautiful love poems. She is genderqueer, and she is a feminist, and she is an amazing activist for the LGBT community, and I adore her work. She's amazing. I cannot say any bad things about her or her poetry. They're all amazing and jaw-dropping and just really, really touch your soul, especially when you listen to them. If you take anything from this video, please go listen to Andrea Gibson's poetry. It's just phenomenal. My all-time favorite poetry books as of right now. I also, just a few honorable mentions. E.E. Cummings, don't have any of his work, but I love his poetry. I have a necklace that's a locket, and on the outside it says, "I carry your heart with me," and you open it up and it says, "I carry you in my heart." I love his work. Can't think of anybody else, but I do love tons of other poets. These are just the books that I own and that I love. My all-time favorite poet is Please Find This, and she wrote, "I wrote this for you, and then I wrote this for you and only you." These books are prose poetry along with photographs, and I love these books. I have read them over several times, over and over again. This one has a lot of the same, I wrote this for you and only you has a couple of the same ones as this, but a lot of new content. And I know there's a couple other versions of I wrote this for you. The author is very private. I don't know anything about it, about the person. This work is beautiful. It's beautifully written, really pulls at your heartstrings, connects to you in ways that you didn't realize. I read this first one at a very important time in my life that I feel like it really related to me, and I loved this book. Let me read the back because I think it kind of depicts their writing style. "I need you to understand something. I wrote this for you. I wrote this for you and only you. Everyone else who reads it doesn't get it. They may think they get it, but they don't. This is the sign you've been looking for. You were meant to read these words." I just love these books. I could read them over and over again. I could write essays about these poems. They're so beautiful, and I really, really suggest reading them. Please Find This as an amazing poet. Look them up on Goodreads. All of their work is on there. There's no Instagram or social media account for it. I don't even really know how I found these books. They just somehow stumbled into my lap, and I feel like that was a sign. So those are my all-time favorite poetry books. I really loved making this video because although I love talking about all my favorite books, something about talking about my favorite poetry books really touches me because I feel like poetry is a very raw and personal thing, and I hold my favorite poets very close to my heart, so I loved making this video. I really hope you guys enjoy it too. If you have any poetry suggestions, please leave them below. There's tons and tons that are on my Amazon wish list, but I haven't ordered any of them. So if you have suggestions of some that are similar to this, or even classical poets, please leave them. Let me know your favorite poetry books. Let me know if you're going to pick any of these up. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you next video.